It's your brother John Mack, aka Mindbender with a 3R, and let's get busy. Let's talk about it. So, the counterintelligence program was not the first of its kind. It was the amalgamation and fusion of several earlier attempts and workings by the federal government and law enforcement to break up political and communistic groups that they deemed were a threat to national security. And that's funny because the term national security is still being used very prevalently today by every administration. Not some, not your favorite candidate, but every last administration has talked about in serious depth national security. So let's get into the title of national security. Who and what are they actually securing? These imaginary borderlines? Maybe that was the talk for building a fence, and I'm sure if they could build a fence around the ghetto they would, except for then gentrification could never be in place. So you see all of these different eras of monopoly in which they take extreme advantage of. You see, in order to have a monopoly game, you gotta have players on the board. In order for one player to be rich and successful in this game, the other players have to not be so successful. And there will always be at least one player who's on the bottom of the board. The government understood this a long time ago. This is the reason why the 13th Amendment was made. So that they never truly had to free slaves. You see, the Dred C. Scott case was never won. And we have been told this lie that once Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, that we were no longer in the slave caste, but that we were full-on United States citizens. And I'm sure there are plenty of affluent black people in the country that agree with this. But just remember dualism and the position that they are speaking from. They're speaking from a position of wealth and high self-esteem. You can't have wealth and high self-esteem coagulate unless wealth is acquired first. You understand that? So in order for one group to be at the top, another group has to be at the bottom. One group has to be the seller, and the other group has to be the consumer. So this is the reason why we're targeted as a group for so many inconsistencies and injustices. But understand that the music genre has caused a lot of angst around the world. Let me explain why. The reason being that the music genre has caused a lot of angst around the world is because for years the music business was controlled by the mafia. Period. Point blank and simple. We also know that the CIA infiltrated all levels of news, media, publication, and radio. Yes. And we all understand what happened with law enforcement and the mafia, they came to a stalemate and joined forces. Most people that you hear from these crime families turned into construction workers. Excuse me. They owned construction businesses and landscaping businesses and record labels. You know, i.e. some of the names at the top of the pile. Look them up. You'll find two different origins. You'll find Italian and you'll find Jewish. Long-term, standing families whose money was entirely disrupted by what they considered to be a fad and would fade away, is what we were told in the 80s. Instead, it engulfed country, jazz, rock and roll, punk rock, and any other corny genre you could think of. Hell, it even engulfed R&B. Hip-hop is the monster they can't stop, and all it takes is for a guy to be able to rhyme, make beats, go in his kitchen for $1 and make a beat. That's not the way the record and business intended for it to be. They wanted you to spend big time budget on studio. They wanted you to spend big time budget on musicians. They wanted you to spend big time budget on everything, because music in itself is a racketeering business. Think about it. You can almost write on your books anything you want, and unless the government decides to get methodical and meticulous and really search every nook and cranny, it's a wash. Especially when you own publishing. The entertainment business in this country allowed us to escape from the corners of languish and obscurity. Unfortunately, when a black man becomes a doctor, dentist, lawyer, or any other type of higher echelon, they leave the community because they have nobody there to identify with, and they want to live a bougier lifestyle, which no man in a right mind would turn that down. So I understand, but at the same time, it leaves a void in our community. It leaves no role models but pimps, hustlers, and gang members. And so the responsibility that these people have to their community in which they rose from the dust, they do nothing in return to showcase that mentorship for our next and future generations. And that's what Tupac did. And a lot of other political rappers, they took their platform and used it to enhance their people. And that is not what they intended it for. So now, guess what? The latest COINTEL operation is now hip-hop. Let me show you some of its origins so that you can see for yourself. Peace.
DemocracyNow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The FBI and New York police departments are facing new calls to finally open their records related to the assassination of Malcolm X, shot dead 56 years ago at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, February 21st, 1965. In the confession, the former officer, Raymond Wood, who died last year, admitted he entrapped two members of Malcolm's security team in another crime, a plot to blow up the Statue of Liberty.
It was my assignment to draw the two men into a felonious federal crime so that they could be arrested by the FBI and kept away from managing Malcolm X's Audubon Ballroom door security on February 21st, 1965.
In his letter, Raymond Wood also revealed he was inside the Audubon Ballroom at the time of Malcolm's assassination. At least one other undercover New York police officer, Gene Roberts, was also inside after infiltrating the security team of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Both officers, Wood and Roberts, were part of the Bureau of Special Services and Investigations, or BOSSI, a secretive political intelligence unit of the NYPD nicknamed the Red Squad. In his letter, Raymond Wood openly says one of the men, Thomas Johnson, was innocent and was arrested to, quote, protect my cover and the secrets of the FBI and the NYPD on February 14th, 1965.
My house was bombed. It was bombed by the black Muslim movement upon the orders of Elijah Muhammad. Now, they had planned to do it from the front and the back so that I couldn't get out. They covered the front completely, the front door. Then they had come to the back, but instead of getting directly in the back of the house and throwing it this way, they stood at a 45-degree angle and tossed it at the window, so it glanced and went on to the ground. And the fire hit the window, and it woke up my second oldest baby. But the fire burned on the outside of the house. But had that one gone through that window, it would have fallen on a 6-year-old girl, a 4-year-old girl, and a 2-year-old girl. And I'm going to tell you, if it had done it, I'd taken my rifle and gone after anybody in sight. I would not wait. And I say that because of this.
The police know the criminal operation of the black Muslim movement because they have thoroughly infiltrated it. The police know the criminal operation of the black Muslim movement because they have thoroughly infiltrated it.
With other political rappers, to the point that there's been articles in the paper that New York and LA had hip-hop units, rap units that were training police units around the country to target rappers. And not just target them for arrest, but actually, there's been murders after that training started. And so I've got evidence of how that's continued, sadly enough. And so I hope to stop it by getting information out there. I hope to contribute, at least contribute to stopping it.